The Orville New Horizons, Season 3, Episode 10, Future Unknown. Well, we start out this episode with Klyden and Bortus renewing their marital vows. That was interesting.
Yeah, it was somehow it was some sort of reaffirming their vows, so Bortus had to recapture him as they were running 3/4 naked through a forest.
I think they were actually supposed to be completely naked. However, obviously for the audience there, they couldn't do that. So they were wearing kind of like codpiece numbers.
I don't know if I could claim that was funny, but it was cringe funny, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The Mocklins have, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure how I feel about what they've done with the Mocklins. I mean, obviously the Mocklins had some problems from the very beginning when it turned out that they weren't actually a one-sex species, that they were actually taking the females and turning them into males. And obviously we've had our ups and downs with the Mocklins. I just kind of feel like at times they are the butt of jokes and not always the best jokes.
Well, that episode that had the Krill teaming up with the Mocklins, and Talea was basically calling them out as being simple-minded and lacking any sort of complexity to the thinking.
Yeah.
That goes right along with that.
Yeah. I guess I didn't realize it till now that I kind of have a problem with the way that they're portraying the Mocklins now. Again, they don't seem to have any kind of complexity to their thinking. They're very black and white and simple-minded at this point, and I think it's taking something away from their species by writing them that way, but maybe that's just me.
If you go back to season 1, there was that simplicity there too, where Klyden tried to kill Bortus. I mean, their idea of divorce, and I think this is the way they're portraying the Mocklins are consistent with, let's say, season 1. But I think what I'm hoping maybe this is where you're going too, with 3 seasons of this series, you would think they would have fleshed out the Mocklin race a bit more as having some nuance versus just a one-note type race.
Yeah, I question how they've become so advanced, even though it's mostly military might with their weaponry.
Well,
but I mean, I question their advancement without the ability to think laterally, which is something that seems to have been taken away from them at this point.
I mean, the Bortus joke is essentially, when he first started, Bortus was like the Worf joke, the straight man alien joke.
Yes.
So what you just explained, lots of people through the Next Generation era questioned, well, how could the Klingons get the space, being how simple-minded they appeared to be as well?
Yeah, exactly. So again, I guess that's just the same kind of problem that we have with the Klingons. We now see that emerging with the Mocklins.
Yeah, but I do agree with you. I think it would be nice to see more nuance. I mean, we were getting a little bit of that with the Underground Railroad of females. We were seeing there was a little bit more to their race than just that. And Bortus was a sympathizer to that cause.
Mm-hmm.
But this reaffirming their marriage, where Bortus basically chases down Klyden, as I said, it was cringe humor. There's lots of people that like cringe humor. I'm not really one of them, but I guess it was funny in a cringe humor way. So we'll just leave it at that.
All right. Well, after that, Isaac got some ideas, and he got it in his head that he should propose to Claire. Claire had to think about that, and eventually she did accept. Meanwhile, John Lamar was giving Isaac advice, and his advice was that he should date and copulate with other females before settling.
You're not going to know what you're missing until you do that. It'll actually affect your marriage. You want to do that so it helps your marriage.
Oh, God.
So then Isaac, being kind of gullible as he is, was like, hey, that's a great idea. Thank you for your advice.
Yeah. Oh, my God. So that was really...
So then he went to Kelly,
and
he asked Kelly, hey...
You want to copulate?
Yeah. And her eyes got real big and like, wait, what? And then she contacted Claire.
Yeah. I will hand it to Adrienne Palicki. I do enjoy watching her performance as Kelly. She has some really good reactions. Her facial expressions are fantastic. So I really do enjoy that character, the way that she portrays her.
Well, even beyond that, because later on in the episode, there's some interesting things that Kelly's involved with. If Seth decided he had to step away from the series and Kelly had to take over and be captain, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
That's one of the few times in a series where I could say I'd be okay. Because it almost seems like this season,
they were setting us up for that.
They were kind of grooming Kelly to be the captain, because I don't know if Seth was busy with other stuff, but it seemed like they had a lot of stories with Kelly. If she wasn't at the center, she was around the center of the story. So maybe that's where we're heading. I'm not wishing Seth to leave, by the way. I'm just saying if they did put Kelly as captain, I would be okay with that, because she's one of my favorite characters of the series.
Yeah.
They've developed her pretty well, so I would be okay if she ended up taking over the Orville as captain.
Yep.
Maybe Ed gets a transfer or he gets a promotion or something. I don't know. I don't know how interested Seth is in continuing this series, but if he wants to move on to other stuff and they wanted to make Adrienne be the centerpiece,
lead,
I think she could pull it off.
Definitely.
Her character's interesting enough where I think she could do that.
Yep. So I have a few things to say about Claire and Isaac getting married. At first, I was kind of like, oh, God, why would you marry an artificial life form like that? I just, and then I thought about it, and, Isaac had made a good point that even after Claire was gone, he would look after her descendants. He is going to be around for a very, very long time. So, he could just keep watch over her family tree for generation after generation after generation. I can see how that would be very, very attractive. So that was interesting to think about. And the other thing, now this kind of bothered me actually. At their wedding, Isaac was using that, mobile hollow emitter. I don't even know. Well, I guess they were in.
I think they were in the simulation.
Yeah, the simulator or whatever.
I think they were in there.
Yeah, you're right. They were. But the fact that he had the human appearance while they were getting married, that bothered me.
Well, I think that bothered me once you pointed it out to me, because I didn't pay attention. I was paying attention to the episode, but we talked about this after we watched the episode, and it's like, so why did Claire allow Isaac to have this human form, especially when there were other Kaylon there during the ceremony? It's almost like she wasn't marrying Isaac. She was marrying this persona he is in the holodeck.
Yeah.
So, that rubbed me a bit wrong, too. Once you pointed out to me, there was something weird about that.
Yeah. Because it bothered me while we were watching, and I'm like, what the hell? Obviously, while we were watching it, my sister pointed it out loud. That why does Isaac look like a human? I thought Claire wanted to marry Isaac, so why doesn't she accept him for who he is? And that's an excellent question.
I know some of the reason is, so if the actress was kissing on this, and we now pronounce you man and wife, you may kiss the bride. She was kissing this, metal or plastic head. It would look weird. But that's the whole point.
But that's reality.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's the whole point. It is an awkward situation. It is kind of weird to think about what she's doing. So by projecting a human form onto Isaac, it didn't feel like she was being honest with what she was doing.
Yeah, so that bothered me. It was amusing having all of those Kaylon show up to the wedding after Isaac invited them all.
The way it was done was, I'm forgetting the exact wording, but as Claire was getting her end of the wedding going, and then Isaac was trying to get his end going, and so he contacted Kaylon Primary. And he was like, hey, I've got a wedding. And then Kaylon Primary was like, well, do you want us all to attend? And Isaac was like, I guess because he didn't think about it. He's like, well, yeah, why not? That's my family, is the whole Kaylon planet. So outside of just a skeleton crew on the planet, the entire Kaylon race went to intersect with the Orville to attend this wedding. And that was done. That was funny. That was when they started showing up, and at first they thought the Kaylon were attacking, and Isaac was like, no, it's just my family attending. That was actually funny.
That was really funny, because he hadn't warned anybody that they were coming. And when he was explaining to Kaylon Primary that he was getting married, Kaylon primary was asking if he was being enslaved. And I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, because the joke about marriage. And then Isaac's like, well, she's going to commit to me too. So I guess it's like mutual slavery. Or he didn't quite say that, but that was kind of the joke that was there.
Yeah. It was a mutually agreed upon binding, I guess, is the best choice of words for that. So that was funny. So there were some good moments with the whole Isaac and Claire getting engaged and the whole wedding ceremony itself.
Well, the ceremony was funny too because they had Claire's people, I guess, on the right side, if you're looking at it from where they were getting married. And they all had like different outfits on and all that. Mm-hmm. And then on the left, all there were Kaylon sitting in chairs, and they all looked the same. I mean, it was this very uniform looking side, and the visuals were funny. Just having,
because they did everything at the exact same time.
Yep, in unison. They stood up, they sat down.
Yeah, oh my God, it was so funny. Yeah, but I mean, that's what they are. And so I really enjoyed that. And we got to see Alara. She showed up at the end of the wedding.
Yep,
that was nice.
Surprise reveal.
Yeah. Now, the other storyline that was going on at the same time as this was that they got a message from Lysella, and she was the girl who helped them to get John Lamar out of trouble when he was on that social media planet, and he was getting all those downvotes after he was dancing with that statue. And she wanted asylum because apparently things on her planet had actually gotten worse since they had left. It was interesting watching her struggling after the asylum was granted and she was living on the Orville at that point, trying to find her place. It showed her going through, I guess the best description is survivor's guilt, leaving behind the people on her planet to continue their suffering. But, at the same time, what was she supposed to do? Just stay there to suffer with them? And then she gets into her head that if she took back the technology that they had on the Orville, that would make things better on her planet. Kelly tried to explain to her several times that just wasn't going to work that way, that if she took that technology back, that only some people would get to use it, and those people would probably weaponize it, that things would go horribly wrong. So they catch her trying to sneak that technology onto a shuttle after she had made the decision to go back to her planet. And at that point, that's when Kelly finally took her to one of the simulators and showed her a planet where they had done just what Lysella was trying to do, given this technology to a planet that was not ready to be responsible enough to accept that stuff. And it wound up destroying the entire planet.
That whole storyline with her and Kelly, that's why I said earlier that I'd be okay if Kelly eventually took over the series as captain, because this was one of the best expressed explanations of how post-scarcity would work, and how, not that money's necessarily gone, but without the need to survive, you work or you don't eat and you die. That Kelly explained that the primary motivation for working was reputation. Mm-hmm. Then she was also explaining how you can't just give technology to people because, as you pointed out, that ends badly, because if a society that you give this technology to isn't ready to share it with everybody, you'll still have groups of people hoarding it, weaponizing it, and turning it into bad things.
And fighting over it.
Kelly, earlier in the episode when she was explaining how post-scarcity worked, and then later on when she went on the simulator with Lysella, and showed that planet and how it got destroyed, and then narrated about how it's so dangerous. That was one of the best explanations I think we've ever gotten. And that includes Star Trek, like real Star Trek.
Well, it's the Prime Directive.
Of the Prime Directive, yeah. As well as post-scarcity type resourcing. Mm-hmm. So that was my favorite part of this episode, was that, and it was really well done. And the only thing I was disappointed with was, I'm surprised Kelly didn't explain in that season 1 episode where she was on that planet and she healed that little girl and she contaminated, not with technology, but just contaminated their culture. Yeah. And basically she was worshipped as a god because of that. I'm surprised she didn't bring that up as like a, look, this didn't necessarily have direct technology consequences, but lots of holy wars were fought in my name.
People died.
Just because I did something so simple like pulled out a healing scanner and tried to heal somebody. And
she interfered.
Somebody thought that I was a deity for doing that.
Yeah.
So I wish she would have brought that up because it would have had some continuity with season 1. But what they did do, I thought was really well done. I mean, it was one of the best post-scarcity and then Prime Directive explanations you'll ever see, including real Star Trek. So I would definitely recommend watching those scenes, if nothing else. Very, very good.
Yeah, so overall, this was actually a really good episode. I watched it twice so far. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would recommend people watch the entire season, actually all 3 seasons, because the Orville is a breath of fresh air in what is right now a really nasty cesspool of entertainment.
Yep. Where you can just sit back and enjoy what's in front of you without pushing any modern day political agendas. But still, human beings have tendencies, and you still want to point out failings in human beings. You just don't want to tie it to any sort of political messaging. Mm-hmm. And the Orville, for the most part, stays away from that.
Yeah.
And I guess one thing to mention, too, they did have some humorous when Isaac volunteered Gordon to be his best man. And then Bortus was like, but I can do that job. And then so Isaac gave Bortus the job of being his best man. So he arranged a bachelor party where they were at a Las Vegas casino and Bortus was dressed as Elvis. And
he was dressed as jumpsuit Elvis.
Yeah, and it was weird, but it was funny weird. And then on the other end, when Claire was at her party, what they did was they had a Kalon stripper on stage. And that was also weird, but it was funny weird.
The funniest thing I have seen in a really long time was when those tassels came out of where the Kalon's nipples would be. And that was just so hysterically funny. Even now, I cannot talk about it without laughing because that just cracked me up to no end.
Yeah, there was a nice mix of humor and drama here. The Isaac end was mostly humor, that storyline, and the Prime Directive Kelly story was the serious part. But this reminded me of when season 2, I think most people admit they got the mix correct, where they had humor and drama and they mixed it, and it was a nice mix. And it was nice to see they found that again, because this episode had the nice mix of comedy and drama. Yeah. So I'm hoping they get another season at least.
I hope so.
And I'm hoping they remember this last episode as, let's add just a little bit more comedy back into the mix here, but, not too far, just enough where it's got that season 2 feel.
Yeah. Well, because real life does have funny moments. I guess now is as good a time as any to say, we have moved again. After the sewer gas experience at the last place, I think we are finally in a place that is healthy and not disgusting. And I am shocked that it has taken all of these months to finally get a decent place to live.
Almost a year.
Yeah. And I just have to say, anybody else out there who's struggling to find housing, I am so sorry, because you are not alone, and it is really freaking hard right now.
We can't even get on the market for a house right now if we can't get temporary, in quotation marks, lodging, because finding a house usually takes a couple of years to go through the market, find what you want. People end up outbidding you. You lose out. You have to keep looking. When I talk to friends of mine, it's usually 2 years, they say, when you start looking for a house until when you find a house. But you got to live somewhere before you do that.
Yeah.
So just finding some sort of place to rent while we look for a house for the next couple of years, that's been a nightmare. It's really scary what's happening, I guess, in this country, because we're a few states over now from where we were before, and where we were before wasn't all that great when it came to renting. So I think this is a nationwide problem in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I agree. I echo your sentiments. I feel very, very badly for anybody struggling with a similar situation, because it is not good.
Yeah, and it makes it impossible to do anything other than just survive. And I really hope that this gets straightened out at a high level, because there is not much that we as common people can do about this. And we're just stuck in this crap. And I am just beside myself. I have no idea. Like, the last year of our lives is just...
Cross it off.
Yeah. And for what? Trying to find a place to live? That's just ridiculous.
Well, that's why this episode, the storyline with the post-scarcity and the Kelly and the giving technology to people too early, you end up hoarding it. It rang home based on what we're dealing with in real life right now. Because my personal opinion in 2022 is if some race came down and gave us some modern technology as a planet, you'd get a bunch of elite rich people hoarding it. Even if they gave us replicators that could change all of our lives, they would hoard that technology so we couldn't even have any benefit of that technology. They would want to keep everything as it is now. This episode, that storyline, I think that's why it hit home, that storyline, to me, because of all the struggles we've been through this past year. So it was nice to kind of get some reaffirmation that this is a thing that's happening, even in a fictional world. And, she was wanting to run away from that, which, by the way, it turns out she is sticking around. Mm-hmm. And she is so much better than the Charlie Burke character.
Yeah.
I hope that they do have another season. And I hope that she's part of it because this character was so much more likable and I could really appreciate where she was coming from. So I'm hoping she sticks around and maybe we get some more interesting insight from her on what her world was struggling with. And it could be kind of an allegory for what in the real world, what's going on right now. So I'm hoping they do something with that.
Yeah, because again, they were better able to develop her character in 2 episodes than an entire season of Charlie Burke.
Yep.
Which is sad. But, yeah. So anyways, those of you who have stuck around waiting for us to get our shit together, we appreciate you still being here because holy shit, we've been through it. And, as I said, just thanks for sticking around.
Yep. We should be putting out more regular content. Obviously, the Orville and Star Trek are done right now as far as live action stuff, but we've got some ideas on doing some other supplementary videos until one of those series starts up. We started looking at Andor. We do want to finish up Obi-Wan, and I've got some ideas about us talking about some other supplementary things. I know Molly wants to get back to Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So there should be lots of good stuff coming up here now that we have a place to live, at least for the next year. So we should be able to start getting videos out more regularly.
Yep. Exactly, yeah. So, yep, lots of changes coming our way, thank God. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And we look forward to reading your comments, and we're just happy to be back.
Take care.